He mihi marika kia koutou katoa te whānau, nau mai, haere mai ki tēnei kaupapa Takiwā Kōrero. We are talking today about succession, growth and prosperity. Today we have our tūkai kōrero here on my right, and we're inviting Whaia Grace and Te Rā to kōrero to this kaupapa. So I'm just going to actually ask Grace, no hea koe Grace?
No parihaka te maunga, hatea te awa, Pehiāweri Marae, nā te hau te hapu.
Tēnā koe.
Ko hau Grace, Turuwhenua ni kake.
Tēnā koe, Grace. Me koe hoki te rā, no hea koe?
Taha ki taku pāpā no whakapara. Ko huru ki te maunga whakapara te awa, ngā te hau te hapu ka hukuri te tupuna. Taha ki taku māma, whatitini te maunga, karu te awa, ko whiti te rā te papakainga, ko te auri roroi, te parawhau, me te māhure ki whatitiri ngā hapu no roto i te whare tapu o ngā pui.
Kia ora, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
So we're just going to actually ask our first pātai, te pātai tuatahi. We want to hear your experiences of what your tūpuna left as a succession plan to replace them. What was their way, that how did they grow you? How did they grow kai karanga, kai kōrero, ringa raupā? What were some of the things, the practices that they did to grow, the strength so that it continues for the next generation? And so that, our whānau thrives. So, Grace, kei a koe te wā?
Well, for us at Pehiāweri, the first thing that I think that they left us was this to succeed the whenua back to the whānau. The whenua, as we know as Pehiāweri today, the land was gifted from the whānau to the Anglican Church to build a whare karakia and a school for our whānau, for our hapu. But as years went by and things started to change, like in the 60s, whānau started to leave, like urban drift started to leave the haukainga, because there was a village at Pehiāweri, there was a village at Toitoi, there was a village at the back of Kāmoa up 3 Mile Bush Road, and those whānaus all connected together. But in the 60s, everyone started to look afield for mahi, go to the cities or go somewhere else to secure mahi, and to, help their children maybe think of go to better schools, And at that time, the Anglican Church decided that the land that had been gifted was actually no use to them anymore, and no one was there except our uncle, my granduncle, who was my grandfather's brother, Wiramu Kaki, Uncle Bill we called him. He was the paramount chief of the time of Ngāti Hau ki Pehiāweri. And the Anglican Church decided that they were going to sell our whenua as be a part of the Golden Mile, going out to, to establish lifestyle blocks for people, 10 acres, you could, build a big whare. Yeah. And so that's what was going to happen to our whenua, until our granduncle stood up and he said, this is not going to happen. It's our whānau now, time to stand up. E Tū is a whānau, and to get our land back for our whānau.
Wow. And
so that was actually a movement within our, when I say young people of the day, that was actually us in the 70s. We were young then. And so the young people he called, and like we all lived in Auckland, and he called all whānau, big whānau hui's at his home, his son's home, our uncle Dick Kake, my father, Ben Kake, Charlie Kake, all my uncles, called them to have this big hui in Papatoi about what are we going to do as a whānau to get our land back, to build our marae, because our marae at that time was just a little house that was there we called the manse for the church. That was actually the vicarage for the minister and his whānau to live in, and that's what we used as a marae of that. And there was just a big empty paddock and a church. And so it was decided at those hui in Auckland that we were going to take steps to get our land back so that we could build a proper marae for our whānau.
And was there people, you know, that actually helped you to get the whenua back?
Yes, there was a lot of processes that were done that were coming to dead ends, but the main person that helped us was a very young Winston Peters, our whanaunga from Whananaki, you know, whānau whero, and he came and spoke to our uncle about, actually uncle went to see him because he could see, he was a young lawyer at the time, he could see potential that he might be able to help us as a whānau. And so he decided, and he agreed that he would take a private member's bill through to Parliament to get our land back through Act of Parliament and through the Pehiāweri Vesting Act, which happened in 1975, I think it was.
1975.
Yeah, and from that, out of that, we had to become a more, you can say, a Pākehā structured organisation, and we became an incorporated society, and so that's why our legal entity that we operate today is Pehiāweri Marae Church and Marae Incorporated.
Right.
And that's what we operate on as today. We have two titles. We have a reservation title and we have a European title. So the European title, actually, we can actually access to, you know, take loans or whatever out on that land, because you couldn't do that on just reservation, but because we had a European title, we can do that if we so
Tino
wish.
Krewa. How smart. Tino koi.
Yeah, so yeah, and that's how we secured our land. And once we got the land back, it was up to us as a whānau to start raising money so that we could build something for our whānau, because we were just going home in the paddock, camping in tents, just, you know, down the creek, just on the long drops, all those things that you have to do.
The good old days, eh?
Good old days that you had to do, and that's your starting point. And yeah, and we did a lot of fundraising and lots of, we were so lucky to have uncles and aunties that were quite, I don't know, out of the box with their thinking, like, you know, entrepreneurial. They knew how to get you know, our Uncle Sam, he was like, yeah, we can sell this, we can do this, we can do this, and, you know.
All for the good of the whānau and the marae.
And then, you know, that even comes down to us, you know, when it was the Waitangi 1990, you know, about my brother and the committee at the time said, this is our big opportunity to make some big money. There's going to be people coming from everywhere, and that's when the Nehua Whā t-shirts came from, to Pehiāweri, and like we all went up there, all our dads and we had a big site up there at Waitangi, and we sold t-shirts on behalf of our whānau, and we just sold out every day. They had to reprint them overnight. Yeah, puku, and that was the basis. Some of us, we put our homes on the line so that we could get, because you had to have some backing money behind you. You can't just expect, you know, them to print the t-shirts and there's no deposit. So some of us, you know, we mortgaged our homes.
Geez, that's pretty big. By grace to, you know, to trust and commit. That's like full commitment when you put your house on the line.
That's right, but it was all paid that one thing, at one week-long kaupapa at Waitangi. The big 150th celebration was actually our main fundraising. We made a lot of money. We were able to pay everyone back on there, get rid of those loans, and to actually start building our marae.
Tēnā koe, man, beautiful. That is a real honour of the succession of the taonga that they've passed down to you.
Because the land was there, but it was like for us, the next generation, to do something with it.
Yeah, mahi a te mahi.
Yeah, so that we've got something to hand over to our tamariki mokopuna. And I think that we have.
Me huri a hau koe e te rā, just around your whakaaro, around what does succession and growth and prosperity mean to you, and what did it mean to your tupuna?
Growth, prosperity, succession. Well, I don't know about a succession plan, but I do remember being a young fella when my mother would take us back to the huis. Tangis, for example, we as being part of the young fellas, we were out the back. So we were tono to go and mahi kai. So we'd go and get the firewood, we'd go and get the tuna, we'd go and get the watercress, the puha and all of that, kill the pigs and kill the beef. And so we got to learn the places where to go to get these resources. And so it was something growing up that we came to know. And so when we got a bit older, the next generation coming through, it was their turn to pick up the axe, to light the fire and go and get the watercress. So in a sense it was a succession, passing on that knowledge of where to go to get these resources, the kohi kai and the firewood, and tuna, and the tuna, and then even some tuna. So it was of course a staple part of our kai. And even at Whakapara, there wasn't much involvement when I was a young fellow with the marae. As I remember at the marae, there was a lot of gorse in it. But going to stay with the grandfather, there'd come the times of at different parts of the year we'd go mahi kai. Same thing. We'd go to places for the firewood, for the tuna. So there were certain places that we went to get these kai. And so we were the young fellas, and growing up we got to learn where these places were, and then having our own children, we'd go out with them and get kai moana. That's goes without saying. The kai moana was even at Poroti. He sent people, even though we were inland, people were sent to go and get kai moana, and so we knew places where to get this kai moana from. And so there were no such things as customary permits back then, but there were places where we'd go to all the time at the different seasons of different parts of the year.
We don't mind if you want to share those spaces with us later.
Ware katoa. Ware katoa where those places are, but it was the same for different whānau. They had their own places where they'd go to, and they'd go and kohi kai, mahi kai, and they'll bring them as part of their koha to the kaupapa for the hui. And so it was a way of, sustaining ourselves, sustaining the hui, sustaining the whānau. They lived even outside the hui, when there wasn't any hui happening, at the different seasons of the year, like the tuna whakaheke. Tuna whakaheke, we know the places where we'd go to get these resources, tuna. And we'd watch for the signs and the waterways. So we were, both my mother's marae and my father's marae, we were both on the same water catchment. And so the tuna was a big part of our life. And so, the expectation was that when people from outside the area came to the marae or came to our papakainga to visit and or to hui, the expectation was that they're going to be fed with tuna. And vice versa, when we go to the coast, the expectation was that we'd get fed with kai moana. And so it was
like reciprocated.
Yeah, it was a reciprocal thing. And so that sustained our whānau. It sustained our whanaungatanga. It was a big part of our manakitanga to one another, kotahitanga or the unity. And that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, this is the plan, we just went and done it, and it just happened as a matter of course. And so a lot of those things don't happen these days as they used to, partly because of the way the state of our waterways, for example. It's just not the same. But we are looking to educate our children and to do with our waterways. We've been involved with water testing. We've been involved with Nehua, with the regional council, district councils in terms of
replenishing the wai,
Yeah, well, we're involved with a group, ngā kaitiaki o ngā wai Māori. Our kaupapa is the whakahokia mai te Māori o ngā awa. So that includes our children. I mean, what's the use of us doing it? I mean, my generation, if the children aren't involved. So we have them involved as much as possible. We've also been running a Oscar holiday program on the marae, which we also involve them with our natural environment. We take them up to the bush, weaving, waterways, and even our local histories.
So, if you had to think about the tuna and the tohu that you start to understand, without giving too much away to our whānau, what were some of those tohu that you were taught that you knew this is the right time to go?
Ka heke te ua, when the big rains come. And it used to be, around about February, March-ish. But then of recent years, it's changed a bit. Might be April, May sometimes. And so when the big rain comes, and we seen it in the Hikurangi song, Te Repo, is that one of our issues we have there is the pump stations that drain the flood waters off the farmers' farms. So those pump stations are chopping up all the tuna. So there's about 7 pump stations. They approximately chop up a ton and a half tuna every year, times 7 pump stations. That's about 10 ton of tuna. And so, mea mai rātou ngā kai pāmu, it's just a few tuna. But for us, that's a lot of feeds there.
Yeah, a lot of kai
It's a lot of manaakitanga that we don't get to deliver to our manuhiri. They come, and so it's a big thing for us. It's a huge thing. People used to come out of the area from outside the area just to come to the swamp to get tuna. It was there was enough there for everybody. And so those were some of the signs. There was, we used to hear the kōrero about the tuna, how they didn't eat prior to a heke, a tuna whakaheke, and that you could eat them, you don't have to gut them, you just eat the whole lot. And, it's just, I remember...
ngā taonga tuku iho, eh? Ngā taonga tuku iho.
I remember going ealing, spearing, and catching heaps, but not just, but giving them out to the whānau. There was that many we just feed the whole, give them to all the whānau. And so
and
there was
that's the manaaki, eh?
manaakitanga. There was part of manaakitanga, whanaungatanga, kotahitanga, kaitiakitanga, because kaitiakitanga is a big part of it. It's about being caretakers of our waterways, of our environment, including the whānau that lived in it.
Kia ora. What are the things that are thriving now for you as a marae? Even given we're in the middle of a pandemic, what are some of the things that you can see that your marae and Pehiāweri Fire Grace, what are some of the things that's thriving right now for you as a marae and whānau?
Well, as a marae, we've built a good relationship with our community, And so we have some community initiatives. We have our auntie and our cousins who are doing the marakai. So we have a beautiful garden, and that's for the whānau to come and take the kai. Our gardeners are there every Monday, and they always encourage everyone to come and help in the garden. If you got green fingers, aroha mai, I don't really have green. Everything I seem to grow doesn't grow very good. So I said to Auntie, and she goes, look, if anybody wants to come, even the local kuras, to come and help in the garden. So we have the marakai, and I think probably the most thing we're renowned for is our waiata joy that we've been going for 15 years.
Kia ora.
And that was an initiative from our cousin Pauline Hopa. You know, she's a very, very talented, very talented lady, and she said we need to build capacity for our whānau. So the Hopa whānau started Waiata Joy every Tuesday night, and it was joy, singing for the joy of singing. And our whānau loves to sing, and so it was a natural thing for us.
We might be able to hear a song from you.
So, you know, lots of good things, and, you know, learning about different waiata and the different events you sing your waiata at, you know, waiata tangi, waiata hari, waiata, you know, all the different waiatas that you can, you know.
For different kaupapa.
Yeah, for different kaupapa. So Waiata Joy's very much up there, and we're not doing waiata as kanohi to kanohi, or we're online.
Kia ora.
So, you know, we're using modern technology to carry on our kaupapa online, and we look forward to the day where we can actually still go back and do our kaupapa face-to-face. We have rāranga on a Thursday. We have ladies that come there and offer tuition and weaving, and we have 3 kapahaka groups.
Yay!
Our main group, Hātia, which is our very competitive group, and then out of Waiata Joy and our other whānau, we have Hātia Manawa Nui, which I'm part of, and that's like, you know, it's not so hard out practice. You just, you know.
Can just rock on up with your black skirt and you're on.
And then our tamariki, and we've got tamariki rōpū, and so, you know, all those things are growth for us, but I think our main growth is about learning our tikanga, and our te reo Māori, which unfortunately we are the generations that we kind of the lost generation. We didn't have it handed down to us as lucky as other whānau, that it, you know, was in their homes. It was like post-war, it was kind of frowned on not to I wanted to learn te reo at high school, but I wasn't allowed to. It was really aroha. But those are the things that we are growing, and we're growing our whānau in, and our whānau are standing, you know, stepping up to the plate. Now we've got young, talented whānau like Tima. You know, look at her doing this mahi. I mean, she's what we call real growth in our, you know, and that's this is, and we've got a lot of young, talented nieces and nephews that are stepping up and doing different things, and that's our whānau growth. You know, our whānau growth, and, you know, even when it comes to our mahi kai and our ringawera, you know, you always have an auntie in charge in the kitchen, and no, don't do it like this. No, and so, you know, those roles are starting to be filled by our younger ones now, so that we can take on the kaupapa I roto i te whare. So those are our growths.
Beautiful.
And of course, you know, that's just the mahi around the marae that needs to be done. Hands-on stuff. And
I think you're very humble, because I think there are some things too that some of your kapa, like your hātia kapa, can you share a little bit of, because that they're thriving in some of the taonga that they've actually been able to break through at Te Matatini. If you can share any of those.
Oh, well, we're very proud of our hātia, because we say we're hātia. You know, our hātia whānau is like, you know, true dedication to them, and they carry our they carry our aroha with them. When they go to Te Matatini, we go with them even if we can't donate. But they take our aroha with them, and they know that we support them all the way. And, you know, they've come away with some wins
Yes.
that we're very proud of. You know, the choral, we have very talented tutors in choral singing. Yeah, we've come away with a few wins, and we're just proud. We're just very proud. And just the whole Hātia Rōpū, you know, it's come from small beginnings, and what you see it is now is, you know, they're on the main stage of New Zealand, and we're very proud and very humbled by them. I always say to my cousins, I'm so proud of you, proud of the mahi that you do, because they showcase us as a whānau, because they're always in their waita songs, in their kapaka, it's always Pehiāweri Ngāti Hau, parihaka te maunga.
Ka nui te mihi, ka nui te aroha. Me huri ahau ki a koe te rā, o whakaaro mō ngā tupu ake, you know, and thriving as a whānau, as a marae. What are some of the things you can see that you're proud of?
So over recent times, you know, we've been having a lot of wānanga. I forgot to mention that previous program is about our matua ankara nei, our boss Tipene.
Yes.
He'd often come and run our wānanga tikanga, whakapapa. And so we've been having a lot of those. We've had wānanga, we've had wānanga in the past to do with the different roles on the marae. Like you got our whare hui with the taumata and the kaikaranga. You got the whare ki kōpū or our whare kai with the ringa wera, kai mahi kai. And then you got our, in terms of our tangihanga, you got the kai kiri poka or our grave diggers. And the need to acknowledge the mahi that they do and how they sink in with one another. One of the things we identified was the need for the communications between one to the other, because it's very important to have those communications. You don't want to be sending manuhiri over to the whare ki kōpū when the kitchen's not ready. And when the kitchens are ready for the kai, they ring their bell. You want to make sure that you're sending them over straight away, because they like to be serving their kai when it's hot. They don't want to be serving cold kai, so it's important that the communications are happening and that we're getting the people over there. So so we've been over the last few years we've been running a lot of wānanga. We've had wānanga between the marae of Ngāti Hau. We were calling them wānanga haukainga. So we'd have a wānanga at Whakapara talking about some of our local stories, our local histories, and then Pehiāweri will have a wānanga haukainga. We'd go over there and then they'll present to us some of their local kōrero. So it's all about those mātāpono, those tikanga again, about keeping that going, the whanaungatanga. Whanaungatanga is a very big part of these wānanga that we hold, to keep that alive, to keep so that our children know who's their relations. So when they're walking down the street,
So they're not marrying them.
Yes.
and while they're not wanting to have a fight with them when they're down at the local nightclub, because that's been happening a lot too. But it's those sort of things we're trying to instill in them. You know, that's your whanaunga. You know, you don't want to be you need to know who your whanaunga is, who our whanaungas are. Same with Takarama. Same with Takarama. So at different maraes we've got different skill sets. And you've heard Grace talk about Hātia. I mean, it's great. The kapahaka group there, Hātia. We've got up at Akarama. We've in the recent past we've had our tohunga whakairo with our whanaunga Shane there. Recently passed, but he was the one that came to us at Whakapara, said, we want to build you a tomokanga, just give us some students. And so some of us from the marae jumped on there to become part of that kaupapa and built us a tomokanga.
So just before you move on to talk about the tomokanga, can you just explain to our whānau what is a tomokanga? Because some of our whānau may not know what that is.
So, different areas have different names. The name that they came to us at the time from the tohunga whakairo was tomokanga. So it's some places they call it a waharo, and I think the setup or the waharo is a different sort of structure, but it's a gateway. It's a gateway whereby, so we had, for a long time we had no gateway or tomokanga or waharo, and so our kaikaranga weren't knowing who were the manuhiri coming in. She said, "What has this one been before?" I said, "Oh, I don't know."
Yeah, because you know that sometimes if you had a tangi, they don't wear taiwa anymore.
And then you get the ones coming around the side there, or someone coming in, trying to come in the back door. And so we said, "Oh well, we'll tautoko this kaupapa of our whanaunga shape, and then we'll know now who's the manuhiri because they should be coming in through the tomokanga." And so, yeah, that helped greatly
Kia ora.
with our, with our tikanga and whakatau a tātou manuhiri. And so they come through the tomokanga. We do get some that still try to come around the side, but they're usually getting directed back to the tomokanga. So that, we're wanting to, as much as possible, the tikanga of our tupuna, of our mātua, of our tupuna, to get it right. We don't always get it right, but we try to instill that into our children. Actually, the children are no problem; they're all good. It's the other ones that were, like the ones that went to school, got it whipped out of them, got the te reo me ona tikanga whipped out of them. So they still a bit shy.
Yeah.
And a bit mataku.
Yeah.
I suppose it's the fear of the unknown. So they were part of that upbringing.
Look at the taonga that you are for your whānau and for your marae, your memories, your stories, the way that you were brought up and the way that you were groomed to go and get the tuna. If you were to think about a statement that you want to be able to leave as a legacy for how to do this for our uri whakaheke, what would your statement be, or what would be your few sentences that you'd like to leave with your whānau to consider, Grace, so that as we start to wind up our kōrero today?
Probably for me, it's like always keep going. There's always something else to learn. There's also something else to give. There's something to receive. And I think as a whānau going forward, I know I say to my mokopunas, and sometimes it's in a bit, it's like, nothing. If you do nothing, nothing is going to change. So if you want to move forward, you have to change things. You have to look at yourself and think, what can I do to make this better, or leave this a better place than when I was here? So I think for me, it's always look to the future, but always honour your past.
Tēnā koe.
It reminds me of a saying of Tahimi Henare. You've come too far to not go further. You've done too much to not do more. And so, I ronga I tērā ko te reo me ona tikanga, te Māori o te mana Māori, te mana motuhake Māori. So, te reo, ko te reo. Whakaakongia. It's and actually our children are taking it with both hands. That part, and there's a lost generation there. My father's part of that lost generation, but up until he died, he was adamant he was going to learn te reo. And so he was just after 80, he passed away, and he was keen on learning te reo. So it's not too late for anybody.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Not too late for anybody.
No.
E te whānau. So you've heard it here firsthand from Grace and Te Rā today about how to plan as a succession for your whānau, to take up the kaupapa and the tikanga for the wellness of whānau and the marae, and how they've grown and thriving. So I just want to really acknowledge, today I was moved. I had a little bit of a tangi actually listening to Grace and Te Rā in regards to who they are today as a manifestation of their tūpuna. And that's us together as a whānau. We are the manifestation of our tūpuna e te whānau. And so I want to really acknowledge yous here today and thank yous for the time for your sharing, your knowledge, your memories, and honour them from your tūpuna. And to you today as being tūpuna for your uri. E te whānau, tui a te rangi, tui a te moana, tui a te whenua, tui a te here tangata, karanga te ao, karanga te pō. Tūturu whakamaua kia tīna.
Tīna.
Haumi e, hui e.
Taiki e.